What's up, squad? This is Brandon from the Bantu Sun. Thank you so much for joining me today. So, I was actually motivated to make this video by Infamous Austin. I was debating whether or not, and going back and forth on if I was going to say anything about the Epstein files, especially related to geopolitics. And I'm going to make this video and just lay out a couple items that I thought of note. And one of the reasons that I wasn't going to lay anything out is because I've been in this data for so long, or reading these stories for so long. It's a lot of things that I don't find too shocking because I've accepted them as givens. But I can understand the challenge to the psyche of some people as they're seeing this in developing. As when I first started getting into this field, it was some things that I found to be illuminating. So I put it on this premise because I don't want to get so much caught in the sensationalism of it. I want to give you guys some meat you can work with, you can bite into. One, first and foremost, people are people, right? And this is one of the great psychological tropes that I've always advanced: is people are people. You think that somebody that climbs great mountains and does great things that you can do, you may associate or attribute them some type of character because they have a physical nature that you can't do, or they do something else socially that you can do. You attribute all these other virtues. You think because they can play basketball great, they must be a god, right? But people are people. We are all deficient beings, right? We are all deficient beings, and we all have hunger and biological um, capacities. So that being the case, no person is beyond uh, no person is beyond challenge in to a certain degree in this, or beyond question. Beware of false idols, especially when you don't know how that became your idol. You know, when we were raised or we're brought up to believe we only got the best. The reason why we're seeing that person on TV is because that person is the best at what they do. In actuality, and what the Epstein file has revealed is, in actuality, in some of those cases, to the extent we don't know, but that person is there because they represent someone else's interests, and they're advancing an interest. The thoughts they are saying are not necessarily thoughts of their own. They're actually trying to project someone else's thoughts into your brain, and they're an advocate, a representative of a other source which beyond your eyesight. I saw an interview when I come across interesting people. I always like to watch their interviews, see how they respond to questions. It reveals their thought process. And there's an interview released with Bannon that Epstein had. And in that interview, I wasn't overwhelmed with him intellectually. And that's saying a lot because he's a very interesting person. So you imagine they have a lot of insight, etc., different way of seeing things, but it was nothing. I got bored with the interview, like truthfully. And that's saying a lot for me because a lot of times I like to stick around and see, if it's there, if it's something really there. And I wasn't getting it. And like, for instance, if I have a conversation, I can listen to an interview with Warren Buffett all day, right? Even though he talk about a field that I'm not, it's the same field that Epstein supposedly made his wealth in, investment and finances. Warren Buffett, when he talks to a level of great wisdom. You can gather a lot of insight when you listen to him in a very rudimentary way. This is where I talk about like brilliance. This is a very wise and brilliant man to me because of that. Now, when Epstein talked, he seemed like a person that sounds very intelligent to people that don't have that view, or to me, intelligent to people, as they say, you sound smart to people that aren't smart. A lot of people, especially that make money, when they exceed, it's because they're highly skilled in something. And usually they're highly skilled in something, they have donated a lot of their time to that. And they sacrifice other things. They're not going to be balanced individuals, right? Because if you're a basketball player, you're a phenomenal basketball player, you spend every waking hour of your day playing basketball. Everything about you, from your diet to your reading material, everything about you is weaponized to be the best basketball player you have. You have an edge, and then you double down on that edge, and you become amazingly successful at it. So you're not going to find a very balanced person. And making money is the same thing. And a lot of times, some people are really just good at making money. It doesn't mean that they're superhuman. It's a skill. It is a skill. You can a regular person can improve on it and the ability to make money, but some people just have a natural knack for it. And I can imagine they would come in contact with this Epstein guy and or other, because this is who is at the elites of society, usually people at the very end of the bell curve. They're at the high end at the bell curve. They have a very specialized skill, and this is a person who talks or comes across as a person of prestige. Like, how do he get in this room? How do he talk to all these people? And that will really be magnetic to other people. But as I said, when I was watching him talk about his industry, because a lot of that industry was about banking, finance, it wasn't so much about life, but just listen to him talk. I didn't get any gems, but from these emails, and I can tell you, his high end of the bell curve was definitely on the social side. This guy was a social animal, and that is an extremely important skill for what he was doing. The way he was able to compromise people, the way he was able to identify character traits, the way he was able to get access to almost anybody that he wanted to. Like, a lot of the emails, the ones I've come across, the communications I've seen, is him connecting people. Like, why don't you talk to this guy? I know this guy that can do that. Like, they said they had 3 million documents. Do you know how many documents is 3 million? I've heard the analogy that they said if there was a stack all the documents that they released on top of each other, there would be 3 Statues of Liberty. True or not, I don't know. But that's just phenomenal. 3 million documents. This guy was a communication machine. This is the guy that maintained the network. So I doubt he was a Wall Street genius, because I can see where his talent is. His talent was in co-opting people, making people feel comfortable, making people feel like they belonged. You can see that from a mile away with this guy. He was a person that can get anybody to come out and see him or spend time. Or they were like, oh, when is a good time to come out to the island? Or like, tell me more. And he can get people to relax. He gave them a sense of comfort. And that is a very powerful skill. As Nietzsche would say about will to power, but really it's a will to influence. This ability to influence is a very important skill if you want to be in the social world. And this is where he operated. A lot of people say cash is king, but in reality, influence is king and cash is the kingdom. And the ability to influence people, to get them to do what you want, is the most powerful force on the planet. This is the energy behind money. This is the energy behind power. Is the ability to get somebody else to do something of your desire, right? And this is what his great talent was. And he's obviously a person that so many did a lot of things allegedly, and he put a lot of people in positions, and a lot of people got to those positions because imagine if you're a powerful person. A lot of people think, oh, if I have a company, I want to hire the best to do it, right? But that's not how a powerful person thinks. A powerful person thinks, I don't want nobody better than me. I want to hire somebody capable that I can control. So it shouldn't be a surprise. And that's where I say what did and didn't surprise me. If you really think about it from a strategic point of view, it's underhanded, but it shouldn't be a surprise that some people will want to make sure they have compromised people in leadership positions to ensure their control over the situation, to ensure their influence. So compromised people ascend in the hierarchy, and you got to understand this is a social fabric. You have to keep this social fabric away, this social fabric together. An army of slaves is easier to raise than an army of free men. Like, let's not never forget this. This compromising factor allows the well, I would say the force multiplier. Because let's say you have a goal. Now imagine you can get 10 other people to commit to your goal. Like, that is what influence is about. And if you got 10 other people and they're independent, you have to compromise with them and you have to balance out your goals with their desires and try to align. So it doesn't surprise me that you have all these people at the top, and the only reason they're there, you, instead of saying, oh wow, they must have been so amazing to get to the top, you have to say, well, I wonder what they did to get to that position. What deals did they make? but that people in power felt that they were legitimate. So this is where you always got to ask yourself: is this really a revolutionary person talking? Because if they were really revolutionary, why are they able to excel in a system that that they're revolting against? How are they able to be success in a system that they're revolting against? Are they really a true revolutionary? So this is really interesting stuff in that regard, from the social aspect. So just always be aware of who you idolize or put on a pedestal. You don't know what goes on behind closed door. A lot of what I do here is talking about the world and trying to take away the narrative, take away the pretense and the prestige, and really try to identify what I see as observable outcomes, things that tie in together that make sense. For instance, when we talked about Iran, I said something is not up with Iran. Everybody act like they hate Iran, but the Iranian regime is well supported, right? And we saw that when Trump, who is outside the establishment or is not a part of the political class, I put it that way. So the political class, they've been on board, since their days as a congressman up into being a governor or whatever. They know how things work. Trump came from the business world and he learns how politics works. So when he sees this murder on TV, like any other person outside of this world, he would be appalled. But people inside this world, no, no, no. Iran is pivotal to the current framework and they can't be toppled, at least not by us, right? At least not right now. And that's exactly what happened. When Trump looked like he was actually about to do something, all the countries that said, oh no, we hate Iran, they came out and say, no, we must protect Iran. You can't attack Iran through our airspace. Um, Things of this nature. Some of the geopolitical things in the email as well, I wanted to touch on. Imran Khan. I always say Pakistan the most dangerous country in the world. Imran Khan, therefore, was a revolutionary leader of Pakistan. He was called out of Epstein file as a greater threat than Erdogan, Xi in China, Putin in Russia, Erdogan in Turkey. And I've always said that as well because Pakistan is a very dangerous country. It's a country that's very volatile. It's not a nation. It's one of those nations that were put together or countries put together based around ideology, not blood. This is where the Indo-Aryans meets the Indo-European, and this is why Imran Khan. There's no coincidence that Imran Khan was such a threat to the system because he is an Indo-European. He's Pashtun. He's descendant of these Central Asian Afghanis. He's not from South Asia. His ancestors are not from South Asia, like the historic leadership of Pakistan. And this isn't revealed openly, but if you follow the strings, you can see why his words were so dangerous. Because Pakistan has nuclear weapons, because it has 200 million people, right? And because it's full of people that actually believe what they're talking about, a leader that is actually genuine is a dangerous thing. They want a leader that's not genuine. They want someone that talks a lot, like a Castro, that says a lot of things, but in reality, they're really not a threat. I always say like Castro or Cuba, another one. Doesn't make sense, right? A lot of what you look at, observable outcomes, Cuba helps the United States in many times. Cuba sent 50,000 fighting age men to Angola. And when they were down there, they did two things: kill Africans and protect Exxon assets. So you have to be aware of this. And they did that on a Russian dime, by the way, the Soviet dime, by the way. So um, Maduro taken like that, supposedly his inner circle full of Cubans, of his security inner circle. So when you start matching these observable outcomes, a lot of the pretense start to go away. You don't respect the narrative. And that's okay because we're not trying to be intelligence agencies here. All we're trying to do is parse out the BS, but we can get to some insightful meat or insightful details that show how this real world operates. Um, so you, as an individual, you have to constantly invest in yourself. You constantly have to evolve your brain to hone in with yourself because you don't want someone feeding you their narrative. If you're watching this channel, and I think that's what I'm pushing here is independent thought, not independent thought to rebel against anything. Because truthfully, I think this is all societies, right? All societies is going to have this shadow network because only the most psychologically different people will be so obsessed with these leadership positions, so obsessed for these power positions, so obsessed to go to these balls and to have these conversations. And it takes a certain type of person to get to that level, and they're willing to sacrifice to get to that level. So I think every society has their elites, and they're going to have their questionable people. Um, that's not I don't think that. So that to me, the sensationalism isn't all that, but it's just a validation of a lot of things. Geopolitically, it's a validation of a lot of things. I think I said, like I said, he talked about Erdogan, who made the biggest moves in the Middle East. Erdogan, and he's been laughing all the way to the bank at the expense of the Russians, which you can't complain because the Russians laughed all the way at the expense of the fall of the Ottoman empires. But let it not be confused. We are all people, and the same brain that went to the moon is the same brain that crawled out the cave, and we are all susceptible to social factors. So invest in yourself, develop yourself, operate in a state of warfare, not in a position of violence, but in the positions of readiness, being aware, constantly training yourself. Don't have to get ready if you are ready. Develop yourself, uh, know your diet, have a health regime, fortify your mind, be your own person, because there is a machine out here to plug you in. And what I advocate is by understanding how the world works and it's in this finite geography with these moving people. There's a real power in that, and it's self empowerment for you can have a fulfilled life. So I love to hear your thoughts. Please comment below, like, share, subscribe if you enjoy the content. Until next time, take care. Bantu up.